I used to be a racist. Am I the a-hole for refusing therapy as a prerequisite to be in my estranged sister's mixed family's lives? Original post, April 2nd, 2024. My older sister and I were raised by an extremely racist and violent single father in a very small lily white town after our mom died. I could name a plethora of crazy, untrue things I was taught by him, but that isn't really necessary for this story. Long story short, from a young age, I inherited all of my dad's bad attributes, but my sister was always a sensitive, kind kid. Whereas I was constantly fighting and angry, she was into animals and very interested in stories / folklore, places, and people. Everyone said she got it from our mom. Though she was really my dad's pride and joy, her interest in people and things outside our tiny world of drunken fighting, small town drama, and hatred was the beginning of her conflict with our dad. By the time my sister won a scholarship to college, she was constantly at odds with my dad. She couldn't wait to leave home. She did well in school, studied abroad, made new friends with people we grew up hating. She became different. Before college, she was the typical girl next door, popular with the guys for her looks, and beloved by mostly everyone in our town for her kind demeanor. Typical small town nice girl. Then the rumors started about her getting brainwashed in college, and her name basically became a bad word. I hate to admit it, but I started to believe these things because even our dad said them. Ironically, she eventually began dating this black guy, which was the biggest sin possible to a lot of people in our town, including me. I didn't understand it. Our dad was furious for a long time, but eventually it looked like he was coming around because he invited them to the house one afternoon. He started drinking in the driveway that morning, and by the time they arrived, he was hammered. They stepped out of the car to a barrage of slurs, which instantly broke my sister into tears. Then he started throwing cold beer cans at them, and I joined in. Both of them were bleeding, and we dented the car up pretty good. They sped away, but until that moment, I'd never seen my sister cry like that. I was 13 then. Dad yelled that she was dead to him. I wouldn't see my sister for nearly 15 years. I didn't even know her boyfriend's name. Our dad died a few years ago, and the staggering lack of people who came to his funeral was a big wake-up call to me about the need to have loving people in your life. After that, I moved to a bigger city for work. I gradually made friends and began having life experiences I would have never had in my old town. I'm now very different from the rage-filled kid I used to be. Truth is, before dad died, we started to clash. I drank and partied, i.e. drugs, so hard I went to jail a few times. Partying was my escape. I partied a while after I moved, but the sheer gift of time and living life led me to eventually realize many of the things I was taught was wrong, and if I didn't change, I was going to end up in jail or worse. I just started feeling like there had to be more to life than being mad at the world and drunk all the time. I joined a few volunteer groups, and the people I met helped me get sober and really made a big impact on changing my trajectory. My views on race changed dramatically, and I've managed to build a solid but diverse group of friends. Despite that, the weight of having no family also set in. I miss my sister so much, but was too ashamed to reach out. I found her on Facebook and watched her life from afar. She actually married that guy we threw beer at, and they have 3 kids and live a few states away. They seemed really happy in their pictures. I eventually reached out and we developed communication online. A few weeks in, I made the drive out of state and met her and her husband over dinner. We had some very tough, emotional talk, but overall, it was a very constructive visit. I told them I wanted to be in their lives and even be an uncle to their kids. My sister then told me that I should hold off on all that for a moment. Given our upbringing and my history, she recommended I go to therapy or counseling before being introduced to her kids. She said that they had worked hard to make sure their kids weren't exposed to the kind of adults we grew up with. I don't know why, but I took offense because she doesn't know what I've been through. Since my father died, I'm not the same hateful preteen. She doesn't know how I had to intentionally work hard, and I'm still working hard to better myself. I'm not opposed to therapy, but to make it a requirement before even meeting her children seems excessive. I told her I would think about it, but I don't think I hid my disappointment too well. I'm pretty sure she sensed the change in our vibe because the rest of the dinner was a bit awkward. I haven't heard from her since. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to go to therapy because she thinks I should? I mean, I'm literally considering moving several states away to be near them. Shouldn't that be enough for a start? I want to lean towards no a-holes here. I've always seen therapy as something that somebody has to openly be accepting of in order for it to actually productively change that person. Somebody can't force someone to go to therapy and for that therapy to actually be effective. I don't think OP's the a-hole for not wanting to have therapy forced upon them. But I also don't think the sister's the a-hole for having a prerequisite to having OP rejoin their lives. I think nobody's the a-hole here. OP really needs to sit down and think about, does he want to be in his sister's life so much that he's willing to do something that he doesn't necessarily want to do? I don't think it's too much for the sister to ask. Those are her kids. These are her ground rules, and she's allowed to make them however she wants. If OP is uncomfortable with those ground rules, he just has to decide, is that comfort so much that I'm losing my ability to be back in my sister's life? That's a perfectly okay boundary for the sister to make, but I also think it's an okay boundary for OP to be like, I don't want to go to therapy. There's no consensus spot on r/am I the a-hole, but general votes where you're the a-hole. Updated post, April 7th, 2024, 5 days later. I spoke with my sister on the phone after our dinner, and she said she became physically ill after our meeting, particularly after I was hesitant on therapy. Further, she doesn't trust me. I know I blew my chance. Her tone was different. I could tell she had a lot of simmering anger in her voice as she spoke. She talked about a few really tough personal things I didn't know she went through with our dad, and how she struggled to find herself in her new extended family because of it. I had no idea these things happened. I was so wrapped up in my own bullshit. I feel like shit that I never considered how many things she was affected by being disowned until many of you brought it to my attention on Reddit. I will share this tidbit about how her health was affected because she told me she's open about it. She was constantly stressed out by our dad's violent behavior. Growing up, I thought it was normal for adult men to fight their friends over disagreements. There was a night our dad got into a fist fight with his friend while they were watching TV at our house, and dad got knocked out. His friend thought he killed dad and threatened my sister with a pistol, not tell a soul he was there. I vaguely remembered that event, but I didn't know she thought dad was dead or about the pistol. She panicked all night about us being orphans, but was too scared to get help. He finally woke up the next day, but that was the beginning of her anxiety. After the beer can incident, she battled migraine headaches, insomnia, nervous bowels, depression, a tight chest, etc. all the way into her marriage, and still has physical scars from the day she was pelted. I said all of this to say this. All of those symptoms came back after our dinner. I am so heartbroken that she went through all these things. I am heartbroken that I played such a big role in her pain. I hate that our reunion made her revisit that place. I wish I could take it back. I wish I had been a better brother to her. She didn't deserve any of that. I told her I was going to seek therapy, but she was still angry. Then her tone became cold. She said after she was disowned, she went through school with no family, had no family at her graduation, none at her wedding, etc. She said she had reached out to us for years, but we never responded. Dad even turned her away when she tried to visit. I had no idea about any of it. There was just a lot of hurt and pain, and I hadn't grasped the scope of it. I'm still trying to grasp it. I know how low I felt since our dad died, feeling like I have nobody, but she felt that way long before I did. And it was probably worse because we were still alive. I told her I loved her, but she didn't say it back. She then told me she wanted to cut contact with me, but ironically, her husband lost a brother. He encouraged her not to close me out just yet, but he made it clear that I am not going to be physically near the family right now. She agreed to not cut contact, but she said she needs a few months minimum to process everything. I promised that during that time, I will be killing it in therapy and really digging deep, not just for her, but for myself. She hung up without saying goodbye. I'm not sure what to make of that, but I signed up immediately after our call. I really hope she reaches out when she's ready. See, and I think this is the important part. Like, he realized if I really want to be in my sister's life and her family, I need to do the uncomfortable thing and do what she wants me to do. I think that's the right move. I will still sit on the verdict of no a-holes here and die on that hill, but I'm also really glad that OP did the right thing, because there clearly was a right thing in this scenario if he truly wanted to be in her life. Me with my girlfriend has princess syndrome. We have a 24 male OP, 23 female girlfriend, and an update that's almost 10 years after the fact. I've been with my girlfriend for about 5 months. We've been casual friends since college, but only began dating after she graduated. We get along really well. When I say princess syndrome, I don't mean that she is spoiled or entitled, because she isn't. Her clothes seem to take over her life. She dresses like a sort of fairy tale princess on a near daily basis, excluding at work. Long, frilly skirts, lacy blouses, things like that. It works for her because she is very pretty and can pull it off. At first, I found it to be very endearing, but then I became aware of how much time she spends on her outfits. She runs a blog that has a sizable amount of followers, and she is constantly posting outfit pictures, links to clothing items, and whatnot. She spends a few hours a day on her blog at least. Then she spends time sewing items for new outfits or for her Etsy store. When we go out, we get a lot of stares at what she's wearing. I've also caught people sneaking pictures of her on their cell phones. This attention makes me uncomfortable. I have asked her to tone it down a bit, but she took that to mean not wearing anything in her hair when we're out together. I've told her several times that I love her just the way she is, but she seems to brush it off. I'd hoped with when she started her new job in the career of her choice that she would become more serious, but her new boss and coworkers encourage her. I worry that people won't take her seriously or miss how kind and intelligent she is. How can I talk to her about dressing more appropriately without hurting her feelings? So let me get this straight. You knew going into dating this girl that this is how she was, and now that you're deep into it, you want to change her? I think you should do nothing. I don't want you to pursue something and do something that you're passionate about. I want to control you and tell you not to do it, and I'm worried about other people's perception of you. Your girlfriend seems fine. Nothing she's doing is hurting other people. Is it a little bit weird? Maybe. But don't go around trying to change her. If you don't like that stuff, break up with her and go find somebody who doesn't do that. Because I'm sure there's somebody out there who would love this. Let her be with somebody like that, not some insecure, controlling asshole. Relevant comments. Commenter, sounds like you have to get over your insecurities. This is her hobby, her interest, and she's getting positive reactions. You shouldn't be trying to change her, especially when it was something that initially drew you to her. OP, I guess I'm having trouble seeing clothing as a hobby. I play video games as a hobby, but that doesn't cause strangers to take pictures of me when I'm trying to stop at the supermarket. I get your point that it initially drew me to her because it did. That's fair. I guess I didn't think it would be such a constant thing in her life, especially after she graduated. Commenter, so you love her just the way she is, but you're assuming she'll take that to mean she should change how she is. That doesn't make sense. This is how she is. She enjoys dressing up like this. Shit. She posts outfit photos online because she enjoys it so much. Other people encourage her because they do like how she is. If you don't like the attention, ask her sometime to just go out with you while she's wearing a casual outfit. But keep in mind that she already loves what she is normally wearing. OP, this is my problem. How do I ask her to dress more casually around me without her misinterpreting what I mean again and also not hurting her feelings? I can think of ways to say one half of that, but it doesn't work with the other half. If you love her the way she is, why do you want her to change? Just curious. OP, she doesn't need all the frilly stuff. She'd still look like a princess. It's one thing for an artsy college student to dress alternatively, but she's a 23-year-old woman now. I feel like her clothing masks how smart she is and makes her appear shallow. Someone asked, is it for attention? I do think it's an attention thing. She says she doesn't care about what people think about her, but she spends so much time on her blog, replying to comments and such. I kind of doubt it. She also has told me that she loves being approached by little girls while she's dressed up, which definitely makes me think it's about attention. She doesn't dress inappropriately by those standards. She's well-groomed and doesn't show much skin. But is it appropriate to wear lacy dresses and flower crowns to the supermarket? Again, it attracts unnecessary attention. Same with like a guy wearing a suit to the supermarket. Same with somebody maybe dressing up to an event that maybe doesn't require to be dressed up to. They're fully in their rights to do so. As long as nobody's getting harmed, she can do whatever the fuck she wants. If she cares more about dressing up like a princess than being seen as smart and kind, who cares? Update 1, 11 days after the original post. I realized from my last post that I needed to be more supportive, but also communicate on how she could dress down on certain occasions so we can both be comfortable. Well, I never got a chance to talk to her about it. Last week, she called and wanted to stop by my apartment after work. When she got there, I offered to make dinner, but she said she couldn't stay and we had to talk. I jokingly asked if she was breaking up with me and she looked really guilty. You can see where this is going. We talked about how we were in different places in life and had different goals for the future. Well, she talked, but I agree. It was a pretty amicable breakup, even though I felt blindsided. We agreed to stay friends. I've never been dumped before and it was fucking awful. I'm having trouble with the whole social media thing post-breakup. I want a way to keep in touch with her, but as soon as her relationship status changed, all these alternative-looking guys have been liking her posts and commenting on her pictures. I don't think she's seeing these guys, but it still hurts. My friend wants to set me up on a date, but I don't know if it's a good idea. I still don't think we got to the place where we wanted to, which was like, you shouldn't change the girl, but I do think a breakup might have been merited here. I think the best move for OP is to just communicate with her. I know that we're gonna remain friends and you're welcome to text me, but I need to cut you off on social media. When you break up with someone, I'm a big advocate for like unfollow or mute or block or whatever you gotta do, even if it's amicable, because it's not healthy to just keep seeing them. Unfollow, mute, block, whatever you gotta do, and let yourself actually heal. Commenter, fickle is the head that wears the flowered lace crown. It was never going to work out anyway. You had some laughs and some good times. Enjoy that and move on. I understood some of her reasoning. Mainly, I wanted to move out of the city once my lease is up, and I wanted her to move in with me. I was worried about long distance. She didn't want to leave the city though. She said something about me being controlling too, but I don't think that's the case at all. Bro. Bro. Update post to April 4th, 2024, 9 years and 8 months later. I was going through an old email and found this account again. I was surprised I could still log in, and even more by the amount of people who had reached out to me. It's a bit embarrassing to relive this breakup from almost 10 years ago. In retrospect, it wasn't meant to be, and I think I was reeling more from getting dumped than the loss of the relationship. I am 33 now and married to a wonderful woman, 31 female, for 4 years. I learned my lesson about supporting my significant other's hobbies. My wife loves running and baking. We have a daughter who is turning 3 this year. I want her to be free to express herself how she likes, as long as it is safe, of course. I would do anything for them. I am still friends with my ex on social media. We don't talk, but will like each other's posts. She is married to another woman now who also dresses differently. It's not as frilly as she used to dress, but still unusual. Her pictures look like something out of Anne of Green Gables. Okay, I need to Google this. That was not really what I was expecting here. This is fine. It's just like Amish, I guess. She seems very happy on their farm together. Relevant comment: can we expect an update in 10 years when your daughter has become a teenager and developed princess syndrome? OP. Well, she does love pink and purple. He's showing signs of realizing that maybe he was wrong to try to like change his girlfriend, but I feel like discontent from this story. It felt like nothing was resolved, just new things popped up. I have the chance to date my old high school crush, but I'm engaged to my fiance. What do I do? We have a 25 male OP, 25 female high school crush, and 24 female fiance. March 10th, 2024. I had a crush on this girl, Carla, since middle school, going into high school, but she never paid me no mind. I left for the military and met Sarah, who is a nurse and wants to become a doctor, nurse practitioner. Sarah was the usual type of girl I dated. I left the military to do contracting work and moved back to my home state. One day, while I was getting drinks at the bar, Carla was my bartender. She didn't recognize me, but when I told her my name, she couldn't believe it. She said she couldn't believe how much I changed. I started becoming a regular and eventually changed contact information with her to catch up. Throughout this time, she told me she has a crush on me, even though she knows I have a fiance. She said she likes how driven I am. Now I'm conflicted. She says that she will give me time to think about what I want to do. My fiance and I are doing great, but I feel like she's normally the type of woman I always get. Carla, I have never had the opportunity or thought I would. I don't want to hurt Sarah, but I feel like I would regret this forever if I don't pursue it. Commenters are telling OOP to dump Sarah because she deserves better than a cheater like himself, and that he's going to regret his flighty decision in the long run. Yeah, leave your fiance to pursue this girl, not because that is your right or whatever, but because if you're even considering it, you shouldn't marry this woman, and she doesn't deserve a shitty person who's even thinking about leaving her for some dumb bartender high school crush. How dude brain can you be? Update: I want to get my fiance back. Well, if it isn't the consequences of OP's actions. April 2nd, 2024. I broke her heart. I love Sarah so much, and I stupidly called off the wedding to be with my old crush a few weeks ago. Throughout the couple weeks, Carla used me as a piggy bank. That's all I fucking was to her. I spoiled her, paid for her hair, nails, etc. I gave her everything. I found out she used the money I zelled her to buy a ticket for some guy to come see her. I'm sick to my stomach. I reached out to Sarah, but she feels betrayed and said she doesn't want to be a sloppy seconds, but she's not. I love her and needed this to realize it. OOP insists he loves Sarah, and he just needed this past few weeks to remind him of that. Commenters don't buy it and laugh at him. I also do not buy it, and I also laugh at him. It's even funnier that people would come to Reddit and be like, yeah, bro, like people will totally agree with me. My guy, go to therapy. When I was around 10, I met a strange boy who seemed to appear from nowhere. Him and I became super close friends, but after a year, he disappeared. I never found a way of contacting him again. Before we get into the last story, I just wanted to say thank you for watching the video this far. And if you're enjoying the video this far, if you could hit the subscribe button or follow if you're listening on Spotify, as well as maybe share this with a friend who also enjoys Reddit stories. I appreciate any support, and if you enjoyed the video, I'm sure your friends will too. Original post, July 12th, 2021. I was probably around 10/11 years old the first time I remember the boy turning up. It was the middle of the summer, and my friends and I were swimming in a lake in one of my parents' fields. I grew up in a small farmer's town with a population of no more than 200, and so everyone knew everyone. There were 2 schools in the town, one for boys and one for girls. I'm not sure why they split them by gender, and I'm pretty sure both have merged now, but that's what it was like when I lived there. I'm going to tell it how I remember it happening, but my friend who was there at the time remembers it slightly differently than I do. So as I was saying, my friends, I think it was about 4 of us in total, and I were swimming in the lake at the bottom of one of my parents' fields. It was about a 15-minute walk from my main house. We had been playing there for a while when we heard someone calling to us. We looked over and saw the boy standing at the edge of the lake, completely naked. Once we noticed him, he shouted shouted if he could play with us. He looked to be around the same age as us, maybe a little older, but not by much. He was super pale, like white pale. I remember being amazed and kind of jealous of his super bright green eyes. He also had shoulder-length white blonde hair, like Draco Malfoy blonde. I looked to my friends and we said, yeah, he can come to the lake with us. None of us recognized him, which, as I said, was weird because we had all lived in this tiny town for our whole lives and everyone basically knew everyone living there. He introduced himself as Richard, but he said he prefers if we call him Richie, so we did. I remember asking Richie where he was from, but he would go all awkward and would never give a straight answer. Anyway, after a while more of playing in the lake, Richie seemed fun and I invited him to come back to my house for supper. He straight away said he would love to come and my friend was like, don't you need to ask your mom? To which Richie said something like, oh, she won't mind. Remember how I said Richie was completely naked? Well, that wasn't so strange. In fact, I'm pretty sure we all were. My friends and I were all boys and we would skinny dip in the lake normally, so it didn't stick out to me when he first arrived like that. But what did stick out to me was when we got out of the lake and dried and dressed ourselves, Richie had no clothes with him to get dressed into, which I remember thinking was super weird. But he said something like, oh, I must have forgot to bring them, which again, I thought was very weird. Like, how do you forget your clothes? I wasn't sure how my parents would react to me bringing home a naked boy, so I gave him my briefs and my overshirt to put on. But yeah, that stuck out as very odd. My friends went back home and Richie and I went to my house. My dad was like, where's his clothes? I just made something up. I'm pretty sure I said something like his clothes got wet, so we left them in the sun to dry. I got him some trousers to put on. We ate supper, which I remember him having 3 or 4 plates of. As I said, Richie is a super skinny boy. I was pretty small and skinny at the time, but he was definitely skinnier than I was. So I was confused how he ate so much. Richie was super polite and sweet to everyone while he was at my house. After supper, I took him upstairs to my room and we played on my Nintendo 64 together. He had never seen one before and was super amazed by it. At the time, I thought he had never seen one because they were so old. This was 2010. But my family was poor and that's all I had. It started to get dark and I asked him if he wanted to sleep over. He was really excited by that and said, yeah. I checked with my parents, but I knew they wouldn't mind because they were both super drunk, so we continued playing on the N64 until it was super late. After a while, I said it was time we went to bed as I was tired, but I don't remember him seeming tired at all. Richie asked if he could shower before, as we had been playing in my fields and he was really muddy. As he was showering, I made my bed for us and put a movie on the TV for us to watch as we went to sleep, and I got into bed. Richie came in like 5 minutes later and was completely naked again. I was like, did you walk from the bathroom like that? He was like, yeah, and didn't seem to care at all. So even though I thought it was strange, I didn't say anything. He got into my bed, I asked him if he wanted any pajamas, and he said no, it was too hot, which, to be fair, I do remember it being really hot that day. I had a Scooby-Doo movie on, and he was really excited by it, and didn't know anything about them, which I guess isn't too weird. But looking back, he didn't seem to know any pop culture stuff at all. I mean, we were pretty behind the times in my small town, but we still knew most pop culture. I had slept in quite a lot the next day, but when I woke up, Richie wasn't in my room. I went and asked my mom if she'd seen him, and she said he left early that morning after his parents rang our house. How they knew he was with us or where to ring, I'm still not sure. Richie had taken some shorts from my room because my mom said he couldn't leave without clothes on. I was a little disappointed he left without me, or at least without saying goodbye, or without leaving any way of contacting him again. He turned up again a couple days later when my friends and I were swimming in the lake again. This time he brought clothes, but I'm pretty sure he only brought some briefs and a shirt with no pants, which again, I thought was weird. Over the next year, him and I became super close. We were like brothers. Over the year, I asked if I could see his home or meet his family, but anytime I asked anything personal about him, he would go awkward and not want to talk about it, or he would just change the subject. But I could see it made him feel uncomfortable, so I didn't push him to tell me. He did tell me he was homeschooled, which I thought was cool because in my mind, that meant no school. As I said, we became very close over the year. I feel like he was more than a friend to me. It's difficult to explain. It's almost like we clicked the first time we met. We became close really quick, and I feel like I could tell him anything, and he would always help and support me. He helped me through so many hard times, and he definitely encouraged me to be a better person. It was almost as if he could sense when I was going through anything. For example, when my grandma passed away, I went out into my fields to cry as I didn't want to do it in front of my family. But after sitting down in some random place, Richie turned up and sat next to me. He said some things that I remember helping me a lot. When I asked him how he found me, he said that he was just on a walk. Not too long after this, he just vanished. It had been a little over a year since the first time he appeared at the lake. It was around September the year after, so it had been around a year and 2/3 of a month. He never turned up again, never said goodbye, never left a trace. I was massively upset. I really missed him. I would walk around the fields looking for him, and I would hang out by the lake where we first met, hoping he would turn up, but he never did again. I still don't know what happened to him. I've tried searching social media for him, but with no luck, and since he would never tell me that much about his life, I don't have that much to go on. I asked my parents what they remember of him. They said they remember him being odd and that they were unsure about him at first, especially how he had a tendency to strip naked whenever he felt like it. But they also said that he and I were inseparable, and wherever I was, he was sure to be found there too. They said they remember me being heartbroken when he stopped appearing, and they weren't sure whether they should call the police about him being gone, but they never did. I kind of wish they did. I suppose this is a long shot, but if you're reading this, Richie, reach out to me. I'd love to speak to you again and get some answers to all the weird things about you. It's completely possible that there isn't anything paranormal about Richie, but it's definitely strange. Not much to say. There's a couple ways this could go. Maybe the kid is in a cult. Maybe it is paranormal. I'm trying to think if there's anything else where a kid would just be naked. That's the weird part, where it's like, oh, this kid just kept turning up naked and like actively wanted to be naked. Update 1.1. I am visiting my parents for a couple weeks. I will search the house for any photos of us that I can share here. Though with 7 older brothers and a lot of family photos, I'm not sure I'll find anything. Also, there is a fun day at the local church to celebrate the school's breaking up for summer holiday. As suggested by a commenter, I'm going to attend the coffee morning where all the old people who live in the village go. Even if this means waking up at 7 a.m., I'm going to be asking around to see if anyone remembers Richie. I will update this thread tomorrow if I find anything. Update 1.2. I have asked around at my local church today. No one seemed to remember Richie. I started to lose a little hope, but word must have spread around that I was looking for someone because an old lady, I'll call her Sharon in this, who I know but haven't ever really spoken to before, came up to me. She says she thinks she might know Richie's maternal great aunt. She's going to try and find the contact details for me so I can reach out and see if the great aunt has any info on Richie. Sharon says if Richie does belong to the family she's thinking of, then he would have lived at a cottage around an hour and 15-minute walk from the main village. She said the cottage is secluded with no neighbors. Sharon has no idea why they disappeared, but she said she isn't that close to Richie's great aunt. I hope this is good news. I might actually be a step closer to finding Richie again. I'll update with any more news if I find any. Update 1.3. I have contacted Richie's potential great aunt, PGA for short, LOL, with no luck. I called the number that Sharon gave me a couple times with no answer though. I have left a message explaining who I am. I have sent a letter first class to the address that Sharon gave me as well, which should get there tomorrow or the day after. Hopefully the PGA is still living at that address and I am able to get some answers. In the letter, I also explained why I was interested in contacting her and gave my phone number if she would like to call me instead of writing back. I will update as soon as I have anything new. Oh, and one more thing. I visited the cottage where Sharon thought Richie could have been living. The cottage is abandoned and run down. Seems likely that he could have been living there. It gave off massive creepy vibes though. Update 1.4. I have heard back from the PGA. I'll name her Jane. Someone suggested that I check if the number was linked to any apps like WhatsApp. It was, and I reached out to Jane on there. This seemed to do the trick and she messaged me back relatively quickly. After describing Richie to her, she said pretty confidently that she is related to Richie. This is where things take a bad turn. Jane hasn't been in contact with Richie's family for many years, but she does have the phone number of Richie's older sister. I had no idea he even had siblings at all. Jane insinuated that I won't find what I'm looking for when contacting Richie's sister. I fear the worst. It seems as though something has happened to Richie. Jane told me that Richie's sister will be able to tell me more, gave me her number, and then hung up the phone. I'm incredibly anxious to reach out to Richie's sister. This could be the end of the search that has taken me so long, but I fear that it isn't the ending that I have dreamed of. I will update this thread once I know more. No, bro, if Richie's dead, I'm gonna be so fucking sad. Update 2. This journey has been difficult. Many years I have searched for answers on where Richie is now. Sadly, it is not good news. Deep down, I think I feared and perhaps avoided searching for Richie in case this was the outcome. I tracked down a distant relative to Richie who put me in contact with Richie's older sister, a sister that I did not know existed. For the sake of clarity, I will name the sister Sarah. Sarah helped put into context Richie, his odd behavior, his unwillingness to show me his home, and his disappearance. Sarah and Richie both suffered abuse and neglect at the hands of their father. Their father, who suffered from severe mental issues and drug-related problems for most of his adult life. Their father was terrified of the outside world and thus kept them secluded away in secret. According to Sarah, their father was convinced that the world was months away from ending at any given time. He was convinced that the devil was planning to take over his mind and body, and was convinced that Jesus had spoken to him and told him the only way to keep him and his family safe was to keep them secluded from the outside world. Sarah shared that her father would not often be physically abusive, which I suppose was some relief. Richie and his family would move often throughout his childhood, never staying in one place for too long as his father feared that the devil would soon find them. Sarah said that they were most likely moved in the middle of the night with no forewarning. Though she couldn't remember the specific time they were moved from my town, this helps explain how Richie seemed to appear one day and disappear 15 months later. Richie passed away at age 15, around 2.5 years after vanishing from my town. Sarah struggled to go into the details of Richie's death, and I don't want to push her into sharing something that was painful to her, though it seemed that Richie took his own life. Sarah told me that Richie would often speak of me and the time we spent together, and that all Richie ever wanted to do was to come back and find me. Sadly, he never managed that. She said that she thought that I was just imaginary. She isn't sure how Richie would sneak out of the house to meet with me, but said that their father would keep them locked in their rooms for days and sometimes weeks at a time. Sarah told me that she had a collection of Richie's diaries, which I do remember him writing occasionally. She has offered to send them to me, which is lovely of her. She told me that a lot of the writing is about me, about our time together, about how he wanted to find me again so we could run away together. Again, she never thought I was a real person. Hearing that was so incredibly bittersweet. I look forward to reading these diaries, even though it will be incredibly difficult at the same time. She said that she is glad that Richie managed to have an impact on someone in this world. I wish that I was able to express the impact that Richie had on my life. I wish I could tell Richie the impact he had on my life. I want everyone to know Richie. I want everyone to know what an amazing, kind, and beautiful person Richie was. This post is difficult for me to write. Deep down, I think that I resisted searching for Richie more in case this was the outcome. Sarah told me a lot more information, but I've decided to leave out most to respect her privacy. Sarah is away and safe from her father, which I am so glad about. Richie, I'm sorry I couldn't help you. I'm sorry I didn't pick up on the signals that you were in danger. I hope you can forgive me. Richie, you were the only true friend I ever had. It's so hard for me to write this. I feel so sick that I didn't do more. Richie, I want you to know you saved me so many times throughout my life. So many low moments in my life have been helped because of the memories of you. I'm so sorry I wasn't there for you the same way you were there for me. I love you so much, Richie. Oh, dude, you were a kid. To put that weight on the shoulders of a kid who might not even be aware of the possibilities of these types of things being the issue, that's crazy. Update 3.1. I'm currently requesting permission from Sarah before I post any of Richie's journal entries, as I feel she should have final say on if she wants those on the internet. No, I am not writing a book about Richie. No, this is not a promotion for a book. If anyone was to write a book about Richie and his life, I would think it should be Sarah. However, she does not have any interest in sharing her story. She would much rather leave the past in the past, and honestly, I can't blame her. Update 4. This is strange for me to be back on my third account, no less, but I just wanted to give a short update about my life and the life of me and Sarah now. The day I created this account was Richie's birthday. It has been almost 10 years since he committed suicide, and though I think of him less now than I did before, I still think of him. It seems insane to me that it has been almost 3 years since I posted the original post. Sarah and I speak, but still not often. We met up on his birthday last year, but we didn't this year, and the year before that, I didn't even know it was his birthday. It would have been around the time I posted the first Best of Redditor Updates post. Sarah is doing really well, at least from what she tells me, but again, we aren't close. Sarah and I love the fact that the subreddit keeps the memory of Richie alive. She's really grateful that so many people know her brother's story. I encouraged her to make a post, but she said having that many eyes on her would be far too scary. I can understand that. I am very grateful to the mods of this subreddit, who in the few encounters I've had with them, they seem like genuine and nice people. I've had so many people reach out to me over the years and say thank you as they were a Richie, and I think that's really sweet. I hope many others share their stories of Richie. Richie's deserve to be remembered. Sarah did not give me permission to post Richie's journals, which I am glad about because that would have been an invasion of his privacy too far. He has some very personal inner thoughts in them, and sometimes I feel weird reading. You can very much tell they were written by someone who was in a lot of pain, and that it is so sad for me to see them get more and more dark as he grows up. It makes me feel upset that I couldn't help him in the way that he helped me. One page I will always cherish is a drawing he made of us both labeled love. We got one relevant comment. Unfortunately, the comment OOP is replying to is deleted, but you can gather what they said based on the context. OOP, I don't find it rude at all, don't worry. I consider Richie my first romantic relationship, but it was in a very childlike way if you understand. Richie and I both loved each other in a way that's stronger than friendship and probably exceeded even normal romantic relationship. It's difficult to explain, honestly. Wow, that's so sad, man. I know it's really bad of me. I really want to see those journal entries, but I totally get where OP's coming from. It's really not the internet's place to be like, show it to us. If you're looking for more messy Reddit stories, click the link at the top of the description or the videos popping up on screen right now. The members of our community love these videos, and I'm sure you'll enjoy them too.